Hey everyone, and welcome to Squidly Bits. This is our second channel packed with miniature painting tips and techniques. And you guys have been begging for us to talk about our cobblestone bases that we do for our Hero Quest minis and some other stuff as well. And you guys asked, and you shall receive. Because this is a quick and somewhat easy way of painting bases without needing to bring out glue and sand and just making a mess in your painting station. And the best thing of all, it can make your board game minis or wargame minis look really cohesive without needing to spend a ton of time. So for this bad boy, we're gonna need 3 colors, and one of them you can even skip out on if you want to. Depends on how lazy you wanna be. So we're gonna need a good paintbrush with a nice tip. We're gonna need dark sea blue, lime green, and ivory. And all 3 of these paints are available in the Squidmar Vallejo paint set, which of course we're gonna link in the video description if you wanna use the same paints as I do. Let's start with the first paint, and this is the one that you can skip if you want to. I'm using dark sea blue and covering the entire top of the base. If you just want to go with black, that's totally fine, but I use the dark sea blue to bring in some saturation and reduce some of that contrast between the green that we're gonna paint next and the shadow color that we have in the dark sea blue, as opposed to using a black. Our second color is green, and I'm using lime green, but in all honesty you can use pretty much any green that you want. You're just gonna get a slightly different tone. And this is where we need the fine tip brush, because if you don't have a fine tip brush, it's gonna be really difficult to get a nice control and get nice shapes on the base. We thin down the green so that the consistency is somewhere between a layer consistency and a glaze, and just paint different shaped patterns on the base. I prefer making different sized round shapes, but you can do squares or triangles or whichever shape you want your rocks to be. It's important to remember that when we start off, we only paint the outer edge of these round shapes. Once they are all in place and we see that we have a nice texture on all of the base, we're gonna fill in these rocks and start highlighting them. We're still gonna use the exact same consistency and the same color as we did when we painted the edge of these rocks. And as you can see on the bottom right corner of each rock, I'm leaving that with just a clean dark sea blue. So we don't even add the green to the entire part of the rock. That's gonna leave a feeling of the bottom right side of each rock being in shape. But now to paint the highlight, we're gonna paint in the center of these rocks, but move it slightly to one of the sides. In my case, I'm moving it slightly to the left and back, but you can pick whichever side that you want, because this is just gonna help add an effect that the light is coming from some of the sides and not straight from above. And in my opinion, it just adds a little bit of dynamic having the light hitting slightly from the side, as opposed to just having it from the top. We fill in about 70% of the rock with this thin down green. I often use irregular strokes or stippling to add texture and interest to the piece. And already with that, we have something that looks okay, but it's somewhat flat and we want to add more variation to it. So we're using the same thin down green and adding another coat. But because the first one was somewhat translucent, we can now add this to the core of each one of these highlights and just add another layer on that side where we wanted the light to come from, on the edge of that rock. This time I add the highlight to only about 50% of the area as opposed to the 70% that we added previously, giving us the feeling that the highlight is brighter towards the top of the rock. So that has dried, it is now time to bring out our third paint, the ivory. And in this step, adding ivory to the green, you can do it in how many layers you want. You can paint 10 layers, adding slightly more ivory for every layer, but I'm gonna keep it simple and just add about 40% ivory to the green. Adding the highlight to an even slightly smaller surface this time, and if I want to add it to the edge of any of the rock, I add a super thin layer, just to punch that edge and make the contrast between the shadow color and the rocks even higher. This time I'm only covering about 30% of the rocks, and again using stippling and scratch motions to get more textures into the rocks. If you want to, you can call it done at this step, but I want to push it one more step. I'm gonna take clean ivory and just add small dots on some areas of the rock. This gives the rocks a sheen, almost like they're in a deep, dark, dank cave somewhere near your mom. And boom, with about 5 minutes work on each base, you have a really nice looking cohesive board game setup of minis. And your boys are gonna look epic as fudge. Thank you so much for watching this free tutorial. If you enjoyed this video and felt like you learned something, smash like. If you want to check out the paints used in this video, they're all part of the 3 Vallejo paint sets that Lucas and I have carefully curated with the paints that we use on a daily basis. I put the link down in the video description so you can check them out if you want to learn more. We also have a brand new wet palette as well as a new airbrush. So go check that out in the video description. And with that said, have a great day. Bye.